Welcome back to News here, Rise News. Now, during the last general election in Nigeria, the presidential candidate of one of the political parties was insistent on the usefulness of data in the conduct of government business and formulation of public policy. That was basically the kernel of his electoral campaign. Whether his clarion call generated traction or not, or how much votes it won him, remains a matter of conjecture, but has been unquestionably poignant in the wake of the economic direction of Nigeria post those elections. For a wider conversation on the role of data and statistics in governance, we are now being joined by Professor Olusanya, Eliza Olubusoye. We want to say thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
A lot of people, usually, when people talk about not the developed nations, but they're talking about the developing nations, a lot of emphasis is placed on data, very precise data. But that seems to be an Herculean task in Nigeria, something we do not want to go into at all, or we're not serious about. We've seen this thing raise its head time and time again. How important is it to a nation to have statistics that are relevant, data that are also up to date?
Thank you very much. This world that we live in is actually controlled by two groups. One, the digital group. The world is driven by, is digital driven. Two, is controlled by those who have data. So there is the digital driven, there is also the data driven. And any nation that will develop must be driven by these two. As a matter of fact, the digital world...
No, but everybody knows this.
Yeah.
Permit me to interject at this point.
Yeah.
This is public knowledge.
Yeah.
But there is still a lacuna between that theoretical knowledge and the actual application.
We are coming to Nigeria because your question is about Nigeria.
Yes.
And I've started from the global perspective.
All right.
And then narrowing down to Nigeria, the question is, what's driving us in Nigeria? Truly, we can talk of the fact that we have some evidence of digital driven. I mean, this place is driven by digital devices.
Yes.
But is governance in Nigeria driven by data? Is policy making in Nigeria driven by data? I think that's the lacuna you are trying to talk about. There is a gap between governance and the use of data. And until we are able to bridge this gap, we cannot be where other developed nations are. So that is the challenge, and we now need to address the issue. How can we bridge this gap? How can we be driven by data? So one, we need all of us to be statistically literate. We need to understand, to know the importance of data in managing our lives and in corporate, organizations, then of course the entire nation. What is the role of data? What importance should we place on data? So first we need this consciousness to understand that data is critical to governance. Data, as a matter of fact, you cannot no, there cannot be successful service delivery if you don't have data. If you don't have information about the country, how do you deliver services to them? Educational services, security, you know, how do you deliver health services? How do you deliver? So we need to invest in data. And one thing that has been the major challenge is the fact that government does not see data as a public good. We've not seen it as a public good. And when we say public good, you see government, you know, investing heavily on roads. You see government investing on railway lines, building, constructing railway lines, building airports. Fantastic. But they see those as being public good. But how much do they invest in data? That's why till today, we've not been able to count ourselves for a long time.
If I may come in, you've already highlighted the challenges and, of course, the narratives around not investing in data. But I'd like your thoughts on this. Can you give us a few examples of how data-driven decisions have actually, at some point in time, influenced governance outcomes in Nigeria recently, you think?
Well, I know that we produce data in Nigeria. We have the National Bureau of Statistics producing. And I know that in most of our national, the national agenda, in developing them, we've been producing data. Those national planning were guided by data. But the issue is usually that after the planning is done, there is no monitoring. And you also need data to monitor. After the planning is done, there is no evaluation. Again, you need data to evaluate. After the planning is done, there is no assessment to say this is what we have achieved, this is what is outstanding. When you say you want to eradicate poverty, for instance, that's a fantastic idea. But you need also to develop a set of indicators to measure. First of all, to say where are we in terms of poverty? Where are we going? And then from time to time, you are supposed to measure the progress you have made to be able to get to the target that you have done. And this is what is missing again in our national planning. So we use data to some extent, but not in all the spheres.
All right, you've mentioned the National Bureau of Statistics. We know the NIMC. We also even know the National Population Commission. Yeah. All these entities, amongst others, not counting the Federal Road Safety Corps and the rest of them that do have data of some sorts.
Yes.
Some would say that the reason why we cannot have a consolidated data, and the reason why we refuse to use data, is that they say that some people benefit from chaos. Because if you know how many people, like you mentioned, are in poverty, then you know how much you need to invest to be able to pull those people out of poverty. Yeah. But when the number is vague, you can decide to allocate more or less, dependent. And since no one is counting, actually, a lot of things can fly under the radar. And as we are looking at budget cycles and the rest of them, this is where they say politicians majorly probably benefit from not having actual data to drive policies, governance as a whole. Do you think that in a sinister way, the political class are happy or probably are benefiting from the fact that we do not have data, and also do not have the political will to push for data? Because when they do, certain things will come to the fore.
Excellent. Excellent. That is even another major reason where all of us should be conscious of the importance of data, so that we demand data from our government. They should be releasing data to us. Even though we have the national whatever that allows you to request for data, but we have a lot of information that are not available to the public. And in statistics, there are three things we need to be conscious of. One, we talk about the fact, the falsehood, and the truth. What can reveal the truth is statistics, is data. And people don't want the truth. But if we demand for the facts, if somebody is saying is going to improve the quality of education, then they should also tell us how much, not even how much they have invested, in education. They should also tell us the quality of the output from that education. In health, how many people have had access to healthcare delivery? We should have the number. If you are talking of unemployment, they should tell us not unemployment rate, but rather how many jobs have been created. How many? Let's forget about unemployment rate. Let's be demanding from government.
Very, very good.
How many jobs have been created?
If you don't mind me coming in, Professor, because we're almost out of time, but in 1 minute, you have an inaugural lecture coming up. Can you just give us a little insight? 30 seconds, please.
Okay, excellent. The title of that inaugural lecture is From Data to Wonders, Unlocking the Extraordinary Power of Statistics. From that title, you see there is a journey from data to wonders. And therefore, one thing that can unlock the power that is in data is statistics. When I say statistics now, I'm talking about the field of statistics, that discipline, that power, that discipline that, that produces the methodology to be able to extract hidden information in data, to be able to do wonders.
Very good. On that note, Professor Olubusoye, statistician, and of course, I would like to thank you for your thoughts on these issues. The intricacies of data in Nigeria, and of course the challenges and the need for us to imbibe statistics in our lives.